Hello, my more brothers. This is for my crypto fans. You notice over the last, I would say, week or so, Ripple has had its breakout. Kind of caught everybody by surprise. It's because it's been dormant and wrestled over for the past 2 years, so it's been kind of laying flat for a little while. And full disclosure, I did buy a little bit of it. Not as much as I probably would like. Probably not as much as I should have in hindsight, but I think that's goes for anybody that invests. But I was going through my news articles today, and I actually found I can't remember couldn't kind of capture the site or the news article, but they were talking about the breakout of Ripple. But I did capture the chart, or the picture of the chart. Actually, it's a pretty good chart. I couldn't really add that much to it, but I actually wanted to go over and kind of explain it a little bit. Like for most people, this is the zone that it was in, because this is a lot of people that I talked to got in right around here, right after it had a breakout. It went up to 30 and it came back down, and actually stayed dormant in about in the 20 range for, I would say, a good 3-4 months. And it looked like it was headed back down into, right exactly in here. It looked like it was kind of headed back down into its retracement back down below 20. But I think because of the activity of the CME and the Chicago Board of Equities and Bitcoin, there's a lot of excitement. And I think a lot of the Bitcoin holders, or the Bitcoin holders that were arguing over this kind of stuff, decided they didn't want to miss this boat. So I think they allow trading. This Bitcoin, I think, is not Bitcoin, but Ripple XRP is actually very, very tightly held. And they've been holding it back because they've been fighting over it, about who was going to get what and what the contracts are going to be. But I guess now there's so much money, they allowed it to break out. And there's a lot of interest in it. It's actually, out of all the coins, it's actually more well developed than most of the blockchain coins that are out there. The blockchain, how can I say, the blockchain technologies that are out there. So it's not really as liquid as most of the coins. That's how come it's been held down for such a long time. That's how come it's it's trading not pennies, but it's almost $1 now. But it's been trading in like the 20s and as high as 30 cents for quite some time. But now that it has broken out, you can see the breakout right there. So you can see the breakout right here in December, right when, right after Bitcoin started trading. And as these things tend to do, it's like a coiled spring. All of this here got transferred into that. And it bounced. At first we thought it was gonna kind of stay stable right around, I think this is like 45 cents, and then next day it bounced up to 75 cents, which seemed like its high, and then it got into the 80s, and we thought it was going to settle down because right in here it looked like it was going to retrace, and a lot of us thought that it would go back down to its previous high, which is right around 60 cents, or maybe even, if you got lucky, back down to the 40s, which was here. This was a lot of people were hoping for, so they could get back in and get in cheaper. But like I said, this chart does this particular chart, or this picture does a pretty good job of actually explaining what, because it uses a combined moving average and crossover, which is your MACD, your where you have a lot of moving averages that actually cross over, and actually, believe it or not, it actually shows pretty good buy and sell signals. It actually shows pretty good buy and signals. If you're actually trading this, it probably would be to actually use that moving average, because if you go to some place that has pretty good charts or pretty good chart analysis, Ripple, since it's not being traded as much, doesn't have as many online charts as say Bitcoin does. But it would behoove you to actually use that particular confirmation indicators. We use these kind of indicators to confirm what we're seeing on the chart. Like when you, all the crossovers, like here, here, and even here, are like confirmation signals. You can see the bubbles that they actually put up, where these things, where it actually peaked out, and you had a change in direction. And then the same thing happened with the moving average short, the buy, it got a little buy signal right here where it shot straight up, and they seem to be responding to signals. That's why I was telling, I think it was Dollar Will, that these particular blockchain or cryptos actually respond classically to a lot of the technical analysis patterns that we've seen over the last 20 years. Normally, when you see more mature trading instruments, where it's really liquid, you have a lot of gains being gone on, because you have a lot of futures that are being paper traded that can suppress a signal or hide a signal. So you have to look at more and more charts, because you have the patterns get a little bit more complex, because there's so many games in the background being played. But since these are pretty thin and they're pretty young, and not a lot of your big time players are in this, it's responding to classic buy and sell signals without a lot of noise. So these, normally you would have to find a particular buy and sell signal to actually correspond to the instrument that you're trading. But since this is pretty pure, once you find one, until they get hip to the buy and sell signals, it's pretty easy to use. So this is probably, if you're going to trade it, and you have a signal, these are pretty good confirmation indicators. We always use for confirmation. The chart is always the king. What's happening up here is always the king. What happens down here is a confirmation of what's up here. That's how come you see the bubbles. You have a buy signal here, where you have I can't remember, I don't know which one is the line. It's probably I think this is the faster signal, where you have a crossover, and you have the red signals, the buy and sell signals when it crosses over. I think this is the slower moving moving average, when they actually cross over. So these are pretty good buy and sell signals. So you had a buy signal here, you had a sell signal here that corresponds up here, and then you have a short-term buy. That's just an aside. What else is in this chart? You see that this chart is also trying to form a trend line. There's one thing that is very difficult with these bastards, man, with these cryptos, since they're thin. A good trend line is very hard to predict, especially in its explosive phase, because it really doesn't have one. When you see something shoot straight up like this, normally this will be a parabola. Okay, you get a peak like this and it will fall back. But since it doesn't really have since it's just actually exploding, we were looking for it to find a baseline or set some support. So it's at a, it has a little support here and here. And that might be your short-term support, where it may go back to, if it reaches up to the, we'll get into the Fibonacci's in a minute. But let's say if it reaches up to the Fibonacci line that they have drawn up here, which is like the first one, which is like 23% or 25%, and it bounces off, and it breaks through the trend line, what happens, it'll go back and find the support. That'll be the first support range, or the secondary support range, which is firm support. The breakout here, where it actually peaked and it came back, that's your secondary support, I would say. Now, this trend line here, since it's so wide, it's not confirmed. It's really not confirmed. We have to wait. If we get another trend line, say right in here, which is probably the most likely, right near the Fibonacci line. If we get a bounce on the trend line here, then it looks like it may continue to go up, but this is pretty steep. It's going to have to like even out, because this is your trend lines, the slower the trend line is, say if you get a trend line like this is what you really want. Something slow and even that's upward. When you get past this, you get something like this, an explosive phase, then you're going to look for it to even out. So you actually want a trend line that's closer to this. That's a slow growth. That means it's not going to be as volatile. But there's a lot of reports that since this is broken out, and since they're actually actively starting to sell this may be a breakout. Because this has been like the there's other coins that have broken out and actually done better as far as trading or price. But as far as volume and an interest, this is probably the third best, right behind Bitcoin, obviously, because of liquidity, in Ethereum, which is a little bit more famous. But this is the dark horse, that the sleeper that a lot of people have been sleeping on. This has been my dark horse. Like I said, I probably I put some lunch money in. I probably should have put a little breakfast money in along with it. I'm trying to look for put in a little bit more lunch money, but I'm going to look for it to actually come back. I'm trying to figure out a way to get in. It may be, I would like to get back in, say around, where's a good spot? I would say around 80, right around 85. I don't think it's going to go back down to 67. I don't think it's going to plunge back down that far. If it does, if it gets back to 67, I would say buy. If it gets there, buy. If it hits the trend line right around the Fibonacci number, I would say that is a decent buy, right around there. I would buy it there. I would definitely buy it here. If it breaks the trend line and comes back down to comes through this one, then I would wait right here. I would go right there, and I would wait right around the $40 mark. That means the volume and the people are actually selling off, and it's not as popular as we think. But the news is that the Asians are actually interested in it, because Bitcoin, I was reading that Bitcoin transactions are a beast to actually go settle one transaction. They're talking about it takes 215 kilowatt hours, which is like electricity for a whole house for a week to settle a Bitcoin transaction. So that means there's a lot of juice being pumped in. So you need something more efficient. XRP is way more efficient from what I'm hearing, but it's an underdog because they really do not want it to go outside of it. It reminds me of the old Microsoft versus IBM software. I forgot what they call it, but one was more efficient and way better, but it was suppressed because the banks had it. The banks didn't want it to be popular. One, because they didn't want it to get hacked, and two, they didn't want to bother with troubleshooting. So the banks used it as banking software, and they killed the consumer division. They killed the liquidity of its consumer division, whereas Windows went on to be popular and be like 80-90% of the market. Hopefully XRP is not like that, especially for people that like me that have your lunch money in it and looking to buy more. You hope that your lunch money makes you rich, which would be like winning the lotto. Basically, that's basically, you know, it's a lotto ticket. You know, and I treat it like a lotto ticket. If it goes up, I make some money. Then it's great. If I lose it, it's only lunch money. I'm not gonna be hurting. I don't have to run from the loan shark because I did it. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of drop that in. I know there's a lot of guys out there trading. I saw this chart. I thought it'd be interesting to actually look at the chart. I know probably I need to explain some of this at some point about moving averages and MACDs, which is moving average and crossover that are detrended or averaged out or smoothed out, and using them as signals or secondary signals according to your charts. I think I've explained trend lines, and I've just explained support and resistance fairly well. I probably need to explain this bad boy, which is the Fibonacci number. Fibonacci's are actually just natural sequence numbers that occur in patterns in nature. And since we're natural creatures, we're born in nature, human nature does respond to these particular patterns more likely than not. So they're used as confirmation, or they're used as predicting targets. And you can actually do them to predict where a target is, or you can do it. Most people use it for retracement. So if say this is actually flipped up over, flipped the other way to see where the target might get. But normally people use the Fibonacci's flip the other way to see where it might go back down to, or if it's, or basically if a market is already sunk or actually retraced already, where will it go back up to use Fibonacci numbers? So that's what that is. But yeah, this is a pretty good chart. It does show your all your key resistance zones, because this is what I would do. This is, since it's kind of blown out a little bit where these things are kind of compressed because you got this big jump. And I don't think it's a bubble, because all this activity here, it's been compressed for quite a while. So it was due for a jump. It was due for a breakout. It was actually going to make a breakout. And it looks like you have a breakout. It didn't break down and actually went sideways and confirmed. So it may be the real deal. And as always, do not put your rent money on this. Lunch money only. If it's $30, $50, $100, $200, that's what you invest, because these are long shots. These are penny stocks. Now, these are not to be traded like the big boys. Now, if you have the big time money and big time risk money, where you're trading on 10 or 15%, and that's more than what you need as far as risk is concerned, by all means. And if you're going to do that, then you probably wouldn't be listening to my ass explain a chart. You probably already know. Well, for guys that don't know, that are doing it by the seat of your pants and with your gut, lunch money only. And before I jump off of here, I want to say congratulations to I Am Ball. Ball is balling. You know, he's running a hot streak right now. His pockets are getting fat. I see he went out and bought some new shoes. So congrats to I Am Ball. You know, he may be able to, who knows, he may be able to retire early. We may never see his ass on YouTube again, because he won't be fucking with poor people like us. But anyway, I'm going to jump off of here. I've probably talked a little long enough. This is BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next one.